Hi, and welcome to the VR Gaming Podcast, a podcast and commentary about VR gaming, VR news, VR hardware, and VR reviews. I'm your host, Nick Lane, and with me is Justin Davis. Justin, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Nothing much. It's good to be back. How you doing?
I'm good. We're recording this. It's Labor Day weekend. It's episode 15. We took off last month. Call it a summer break, if you will, 1 month break. To kind of recharge and everything. So it was kind of nice, but I am missing that gap in having, my monthly conversation with you. And it's much better now that it's not just a straight up monologue and I'm not talking to myself. So I like talking VR, and I've not been doing a lot of VR in the last month. So this is a welcome opportunity.
Yeah, there hasn't been that much to talk about, but yeah, that break gave us, more stuff that we can cover.
Yeah, and I think you have more to talk about in terms of games because you've played more than I have. So I'm interested to hear what you've got to say. As always, we're going to go over the news, and we've got some reviews. We'll see how many we get to. We're definitely going to cover the game Survive and the game Vertigo Remastered, maybe some more. We'll see based on time. But starting off as usual with the news, I just want to kind of provide an update of what I've been up to in the last month. So again, this is going to be a bit of a monologue that will turn into a discussion, if you will. And that discussion is going to be sort of on the current state of VR gaming. Coming up on just doing this podcast a little over a year. So I think it's a nice time to kind of reflect on where VR's at. I've been in VR for almost 3 years now. How long have you been into VR, Justin?
2014. I had a DK2.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's right. You didn't waste any time.
Yeah.
So in the last month, as I mentioned, I haven't been doing a ton of VR gaming, and I do like taking breaks from all my hobbies once in a while. So I think VR was kind of on deck to take a break because I've been going strong for those 2.5 years. And one of the kind of surprises in terms of the way I spend my time gaming was I got into PC gaming, non-VR gaming. And my PC rig that I bought almost 2 years ago was just for VR. And the room where I do VR in, there's no desk in there. And it's not a huge room. And I had no desire to do any PC gaming because my gaming was on console when I did do that. So it just wasn't set up to game on PC. And what ended up happening, and kind of took me by surprise, is I somehow got enthralled with this game called Hunt Showdown. It's on console, it's on PC. It's a great game. It's a first-person shooter. I highly recommend it if anybody out there is playing console and also pancake gamings, flat screen gamings, if you will. But I just I don't know. I was going to get it for Xbox. And I was kind of intrigued with it, how it plays on PC, and I didn't want to wait for it to come in, so I downloaded it on my laptop and tried it on there a little bit, and also even on my awkward setup of like sitting on the floor and gaming on this non-gaming monitor. And after playing that game on Xbox at like 30 frames a second, I'm like, this is garbage. So I just kind of went on this tear where I bought a stand-up desk for my VR room. And I lost maybe about 6 inches on my VR space, which is okay. It's still highly functioning, so I'm glad. And I went out and bought like a gaming monitor, and I've just been spending a lot of time falling back in love with PC gaming, which I kind of gave up in, I think, like 2004, 2005, whenever the Xbox 360 came out. And I just haven't PC gamed for a long time, even though I grew up with that, things like Doom and Wing Commander and all that good stuff. But it was just like rediscovering a love. And I think, namely, it's that game which checks all the boxes for me. So that's been winning over VR for me. And I after logging in like 100 hours on that game in like the past month, I'm like, man, this flat screen gaming, which I kind of thought I left for a long time, and I still play console games here and there, but it was really light. This flat screen gaming is beating out VR. Like, what is going on here? Do I not like VR anymore? I know that's not the case. But then I kind of realized that it's not that VR doesn't have an edge. It's not that VR is better, or VR to me is so superior to flat screen gaming. It's that I can't play that game in VR, and I can't play a game even remotely like Hunt Showdown in VR. So, I quickly thought about that, and I said, if this game was in VR, there's no way I would be playing this game on flat screen. Not even a competition. This game would be my favorite game ever in VR. It would be an amazing experience. There's no way flat screen gaming would win. So that's what took me away from that, and it kind of had me reflecting on what the current state of VR gaming is. So I just want to pause there before I kind of go down that road even further, and just ask you if you find yourself, do you spend any of your time with any flat screen gaming or console gaming, or are you strictly playing VR these days?
Well, because I'm MAME fan, my channel, I'm always playing arcade games, old 80s and 90s arcade games. And I constantly have people requesting them, so like I have this pressure to play them, even though I love them. But people request specific games, so I play them. So on my channel, there's always Pancake Gaming.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is nostalgia for me from my childhood. Like I spent a lot of time in arcades. At least once a week I was in arcades. And so I love arcade games. I'm not big into console gaming really. Recently, I did play a flat game called Rogue Legacy 2. I don't know if you ever played the original Rogue Legacy.
No, doesn't ring a bell.
It's a platformer game, and it's like a rogue light type of game. Um, that's the only modern flat game I've played in a while. Mostly just those old games. So is that Hunt Showdown? Is that like a battle royale type of game?
Sort of. Like, to call it a battle royale is not inaccurate, but it's also not accurate. It's what I like about this game. It's very unique. So I'll describe it for a couple minutes. I don't want to go down this road too much, but
Okay.
maybe I've piqued some people's interest. I mean, look, it's beating out VR for me right now, so it's got to have something to it. It takes place in like the late 1800s. It's a first-person shooter, and it's a bit of a horror game. It's a bit of a like co-op with like players versus like AI, but also PvP. And you could play the game as a solo hunter, a duo, or a trio. I think most people play as a trio. And the smart way to do this, if you get into this game, is to go onto their Discord and partner up with somebody so you can have that voice communication. But essentially, you pick your loadout. You buy your guns in the store before you go into the game, into this world. You buy your equipment that you might bring, like dynamite or health shots and medicine or knives, all that stuff, melee weapons. And then you're on this map, and it's a 12-player map. So if you're in a group of 3, there's 4 groups. There's 4 other groups of hunters. And what you're trying to do is that there's these bounties on the game. And these bounties are these monsters that you've got to kill. One's like a giant spider, one's like this butcher character, and one's like this assassin that kind of disappears and tries to stab you. I don't know. It's so you're in this like Louisiana bayou. You're in this map, and you're going around these locations on the map looking for clues. You find a clue at a location, and it kind of narrows down on the map where the boss could be, the bounty. Sometimes there's one bounty, or sometimes there's 2. All along the way, you got to be really cautious of getting jumped by other hunters, because this game is like a hardcore game. Like, you can get one headshot and you're down. And you can get revived by your teammates, but you're just dropped, right? Like, you're not running around Call of Duty style. A couple bullet shots elsewhere will drop you. And what's amazing about this game, I mean, first of all, as you're working through there, there's the computer AI. So there's these zombies that will try to stop you and on your way to try to find the bounty. But what's amazing about this game is like the sound design is so damn good that you are paying attention to every sound. Like, if you hear a branch break that somebody stepped on by accident, you know that an enemy's nearby, right? Or rustling of the leaves, or like somebody stepping on broken glass, right? Or somebody running too quickly. It's all about using your sound, using your hearing to locate the enemy. It's just a very intense game. Rounds have a timer of an hour and maybe last on average maybe 20 minutes. It's very tough because you have a character, and your character can, if you get the bounty and survive and extract, as they call it, you get more money, you get experience, and you can unlock some perks, and you can level up your hunter. But if your hunter dies during a hunt, then you lose that hunter forever, and you start at like a level 1 hunter.
Damn.
So it's got that like style to the game where you don't just run around, shoot, and respawn. And it's no like dying has consequences, right? So it just builds to this real intensity to the game.
Suspense.
Yeah, for sure. It's made by Crytek, who made famous for Crysis. So like, yeah, it's what's remarkable is I don't think this game had a lot of good marketing to it. It came out officially last year, and so in August of 2019, it was in early access for a year. There's like a lot of talk about this, and there was actually a video on YouTube that somebody made, like it's the best game you've never heard of. People who play this game, I think love it because it's something different. It's also hard, I think, for people to maybe get into because it's just this. It can be brutal. It can be unforgiving. It doesn't hold your hand, right? So you've got to be the kind of person that likes a challenge and likes a high skill ceiling, and doesn't mind dying over and over again, because then you see the progress when you start getting better, and it's very rewarding. So, yeah, dude, it checked all the boxes, and I know that this would be my ideal game if it came out in VR. It's almost, it's got some remnants of like a Left 4 Dead game where, again, Left 4 Dead, there's the enemy AI, but there's also other players that are trying to stop you, and those players are playing monsters in that game. But it borrows from that concept a little bit. It's just something that's so unique and so interesting, and again, it checks boxes for me that keeps me really engaged. And I can't get that experience in VR. That's the thing. There's nothing like it. And that's kind of what my thoughts on like the current state of VR gaming. It's like there's a lot of games that every week, if you look on Steam, that come out for VR, but these games are like barely over a tech demo, or they're made by one developer, a couple of guys, right? Like or gals, right? It's not a huge team, so it's just not complex games. There's not much to it. There's not much meat to it. They're not polished. They're not terribly refined. And they're not things that can really hold interest for a long time. Like, again, I put in over 100 hours in Hunt in a month. Not sometimes it's just by sitting in a menu in Steam, but needless to say, I played that game a lot. And there's just not many things in VR where you're likely to just be that addicted and invest time. Beat Saber, people have put a ton of hours in. Pavlov, Skyrim, right? Like, but there's not a lot of those things. And I think that's my biggest issue with VR right now. It's a lot of basic games that when I first got into it, you're just sort of blown away being in VR. But after a while, you start kind of demanding more in terms of what you expect from a VR game. And that's where console and PC flat screen gaming can dominate, because they have these huge teams that work on these games for years and continually update it, and super polished. They know how to keep players engaged through like leveling up and adding skins and download. Like, there's just nothing like that in VR right now, save for Pavlov is a game that continues to grow because of the gaming community, and that is my most played game in VR. Go figure, right? But Pavlov is like the only thing like that, really.
Yeah, my only game that's in any way similar to that is Standout Battle Royale. I have over 100 hours in that, but I haven't played that in a long time. And yeah, this game, Hunt Showdown, is way more complex than Standout.
Yeah, and when I think about the state of VR, in my opinion, VR doesn't need right now better hardware. Like what we have in terms of like the Index or the Rift S, that's great. I mean, that's not holding it back right now. Maybe the first gen stuff you can complain about it and want it to be better. It's really the games. It's really that. And in my show notes here, I have something I have dubbed the Alex effect. Alex was both really good and bad for me for VR. Alex was, to me, the best gaming experience I've ever had in my life. Like, nothing compares to that 15 hours I spent with Alex. It shows that you can make amazing games in VR that are very well optimized, that look amazing, sound amazing, can provide just this incredible, unique experience. Like, I think in the first few years of VR, it's like, well, it's hard to create a game with really good graphics, and it's not going to run great because of, you're trying to render to two screens on a VR headset and all that. But what Alex showed is like, no, man, you can have a great looking game. You don't need the best card in the world and a great looking experience. it kind of exposed that myth a little bit. It kind of shows like that again. It's not the hardware; it's just that we don't have enough games like Half-Life Alyx. And after playing Half-Life Alyx, it's hard to go back to anything else. Anything else just seems old and just dated. Like I think the rest of the games need to catch up to Alyx, and we need more games like that. I mean that goes without saying, but it's just tough. It's just tough to have that bar. Like I've got games that I've bought when we were on their sale, but I look at them, I'm like, dude, I can't go back and play this anymore. It's just this would have been impressive 2 years ago to me, but I just need more.
Yeah.
And I know we're not getting it.
Yeah, I agree completely. And people also have been, before Alex came out, people were calling it the Asgard effect, and it was the same thing. But Alex, for most people, probably blew away, or at least not blew away, but exceeded Asgard's wrath. But yeah, once you've played those games, once you've beaten those, yeah, it's really hard to go back to these little indie games. Like, we were talking about it last time, the Morrigan. It would be hard to go back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tried. Like I played the Morrigan, I think after Half-Life Alyx, and I haven't beaten it. I don't think I'll go in there again. And I can say good things about that game, but it's just can't do it, man. It can't compete because you know that VR exists at a level of technology where we can have amazing games, and it's just that we're not getting these amazing games. And I think that it was really smart of Valve to create Half-Life Alyx. The way they handled it was perfect. Like this great single-player, story-driven game that they can really control. I think now, like it or not, I mean, Valve has to continue to be the one that carries the torch for VR. They have to do that. They have to keep on making some great games to sell more headsets, which they did. Half-Life Alyx was the catalyst for so many people getting into VR. It just was a great turning point. But they can't stop. And I think the next move for Valve is that you need to create a game like Left 4 Dead 3, a game where, with Half-Life Alyx, most people probably have spent like 15 hours playing it. Some people get more out of that, but it has a limit to it. Whereas a really good multiplayer game that's addicting, like what a Left 4 Dead 3 can be or whatever, a game where people are going to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours or even thousands of hours and still want to play that. That's what's needed. You got to have a game that's going to keep people with the headset on for a long time. Pavlov's doing that to a great extent, but that's just one game, right? You just need more.
Yeah, and Valve confirmed that Left 4 Dead 3 for VR that they're not working on that, but hopefully they're working on something that that's similar.
I know, dude. That was a real blow and real bummer to hear that.
Yeah.
But like you said, hopefully they have something up their sleeve. Mm-hmm. I mean, from everything that I've heard on like the Valve News Network, is that they were a little surprised with the reception of Half-Life Alyx. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's got them rethinking that they need to double down their efforts and put out some more games. Mm-hmm. But man, that's what's needed right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Alyx, one thing really fast. A friend of mine who's also named Alex has put over 20 extra hours into Half-Life Alyx and played lots of these single player levels that people have created that have come out, like good ones, and he made a list that I'll send you of all the best stuff if you wanna try them.
Nice. Yeah. That sounds good. I wouldn't mind stepping back into that world because it's just so damn good.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes when I check the Steam store, it's just so much games are coming up with so much junk, right, that I'm not interested in. So it kind of glazes over. It makes me think of, if I've got my video game history right, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like what happened with Atari, where they were just churning out kind of garbage after a while. Like Atari was hot, but then you can only buy so much garbage or look at so much garbage and lose interest. But then when Nintendo came along and they just put out some great games, and that was a bright moment. So hopefully we're just at that point where you have the excitement of VR, you had some good games, and we're getting trashed. But hopefully there's a turning point where some of there's other games in the making that are going to come along and keep this going and give a boost to it. Which I think it's got to be a multiplayer game. I mean, you look at the biggest games in PC, it's like Valorant and Overwatch and the Call of Duties. It's multiplayer for sure. Mm-hmm. And I understand that the base of players was really low, in the early years of VR, but it's getting better. It's getting better every day. There's more and more players that are hungry for like a AAA multiplayer game. Mm-hmm. All right, man. That's my that's my rant and my thoughts. I've been thinking about this for the whole last month, man, because I absolutely love VR and I need a compelling case to get back in there. So I'm gonna jump around to the show notes because let's talk a little bit about Medal of Honor. You shared a new video that came out, so it's still on target for coming out this year. Maybe I think holiday 2020.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
I was really impressed with that latest trailer they released. Like the previous one I saw like looked kind of disappointing and like the gameplay was like pretty basic and vanilla, but this new trailer makes it look like it's really way more involved. It looked like there's some really interesting story elements going on. But that's about all I remember from the trailer, but I mean, yeah, well, there are a lot of different environments. Could you fly planes in the trailer? I can't remember.
I know that you're like a tail gunner, right?
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting all of that. So that was cool.
I agree with you. I'm more excited for that game, and I thought the trailer did a much better job than the initial one, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. I am worried how it's gonna perform with Revive, because it is an Oculus only game. So I hope, man, there's no issues with it because that would suck.
That's why I have a Rift S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not prepared to go that far, but
yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's like a bright spot that I'm looking for. I'm trying to turn this around right now. And then Star Wars Squadrons had released some gameplay, and again, that game looks good to me. It looks very, very similar to Eve Valkyrie, which was the first VR game that I purchased. So I feel like that's a multiplayer game where I don't know if I'm going to get 100+ hours into it, but I feel like it's going to be more than 10 or just 20. So I'm optimistic about that. It's going to have the player base because it's cross play. So that's a key component, right, to kind of keeping these games going, because there's been some games in VR, multiplayer games like Space Junkies that kind of suffered from, like, Space Junkies was a good game, but it kind of suffered for just not a large player base, and that won't be an issue in Star Wars Squadron. And even Eve Valkyrie, I think, had the same thing. It was just it was a little ahead of its time. It was a polished, great game, but it was still early in the iteration of VR. So.
Yeah, and a friend of mine that had a PSVR, he got Valkyrie, and then he said he just couldn't take it. He just could not. He was getting motion sick, and he couldn't. So I don't know how many people felt like that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, man. I mean, you can kind of imagine how somebody can get motion sick in that, especially if they don't have their VR legs. Wasn't an issue for me, thankfully.
Yeah, it was one of his first VR games, so maybe that's why.
All right. Let's talk about some news. I think the big news, at least for me last week, was we had new NVIDIA cards were announced.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
So I think it was a 3070, 3080, and 3090.
Yeah, that's correct.
The 3080 is $700. The 3090 is like $1,500.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
So. And then I don't know what the 3070 is.
I think it's like 500, like $499. Yeah.
So the 3080 might be like, I don't know. I thought I saw something like ranging from 60 to 90% faster than a 2080. And I don't know. I don't think I've seen real benchmarks. I don't think there's been any 3090 benchmarks. I'll end up getting either a 3080 or a 3090 if I lose my mind. It depends on how much faster that is than a 3080. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But then I might wait for the TIs, because maybe in 6 months there will be TI versions.
Yeah.
So I have a 1080 Ti. That's in my main VR PC. So I think I'm ready to upgrade that. Just not sure which card. I will wait for a third party. I'll get probably EVGA. That's who I usually get my cards from.
Yeah, I got an EVGA now, and I was thinking the same thing. I was excited about this. Well, I wasn't just like waiting by the computer for the announcement, because I've got a 2080. My computer's coming up on 2 years since I've got it, and the 2080's been great. And I was thinking all along, I probably won't upgrade this card cycle, but in 2 years from now. But then they come out with something. The 3080 is only $700, which is, I think, cheaper than what the 2080 is right now.
Yep.
You buy it new. And NVIDIA is saying it's twice as fast as the 2080. Now, realistically, like you said, I think it's more accurate, the 60 to 90. We'll have to wait and see. But they've just made such a compelling case where I'm like, well, shit. Like, I how can I almost not upgrade? Like, I don't know. I wasn't planning on spending that money, but I'm thinking, yeah, I could go for twice the performance of a 2080 for that price point, and then, sell the 2080 and at least get a few $100s for it, rather than even waiting any longer and get nothing for it. So
Yeah.
it's a weird position to be in. But yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I'll wait to see reviews. I'm thinking the EVGA. But yeah, I think one benefit is with these new cards is you can finally take advantage of really pushing the refresh rate on the index. So that's another, like, if I need another justification for it, like I can comfortably play 144 without dropping frames on even more games now,
Yeah.
and upping the super sampling. So with VR, there's like always like a benefit to newer cards, whereas there's flat PC games where you already, depending on what game you already play, you're already hitting like maybe 200 frames a second. Like you don't need any more, or maybe you don't have a 4K monitor. So
Yeah, I don't have a 4K monitor. I don't think I'd care if I was a flat gamer. Yeah, so the RTX cards have DLSS, deep learning, super sampling. I have a non-RTX. I have a GTX. I don't know if you've used that DLSS in your RTX.
I tried it, but I don't. I tried it early on. Maybe they've made it better. I was worried it was taking a performance hit, and I wasn't seeing a huge benefit.
Okay.
But maybe I didn't give it enough. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know. I'd be curious if you did get it and tried it, and I think you're maybe better at analyzing that than I would be. Even though I usually have the VR FPS whatever thing on, I'm constantly looking at that.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe next month I'll have a new card when we're doing this. We'll see. Although they're probably going to be sold out really quickly, and
Yeah, they will be for sure.
yeah, I think unanimously people are just like, this is impressive if their pricing.
Yeah, like anybody that has like a 10 series card, everybody I've heard, they're like, yeah, I'm definitely getting it. But then some people with 20 series have said that they're gonna wait. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like the resale value. I don't know if I'm right on this, but like thinking now's the time to sell that, and the longer I wait, it's just going to go down more and plummet. So I don't know. Can't win, but
What would you do in the meantime?
what do you mean?
You wouldn't have a card if you sold it.
Oh, after I get it, I would buy it first and then
Oh.
sell it. Right, like to help with
Okay.
the cost, right? So it's not
Yeah.
I'm not just straight up $700. If I can take a few hundred off of it, that makes it more appealing.
Yeah.
Plus, I was thinking of like maybe last year, if you asked me at this time or 6 months ago, I might have told you, oh yeah, I'll get the Xbox, whatever it's called, the new one that's coming out. But yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm
I have
done
no
with-
clue what that thing's called at this point.
Dude, I'm blanking on it.
Series X, 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 I don't know.
Yeah, that's how I'm just done. Like in the last month, I'm like, yeah, I'm not a console gamer anymore. I've wasted my life on console gaming. All right. So the other news, I probably won't dive too deep into this. I'm just curious if you've given any thought to Oculus's policy of what is it they're requiring after a certain date for people to have to be Facebook users or have a Facebook account to use Oculus games. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't personally care because I have a Facebook account, and I've always used an Oculus account, not my Facebook account, to log in, but I don't really care. As long as it gives me an option not to just show on my Facebook page all the shit I'm doing on VR.
Yeah.
That. I don't really care much.
Yeah. I'm not, I'm on Facebook. I'm not a huge Facebook fan, and I wish Facebook just treated Oculus separate from Facebook. In the way that Microsoft treats Xbox as its own thing, right? Like for reasonably enough. But I look at Facebook's model, and it's about ads and compiling data. I can't help but have this kind of cynical attitude to what they're trying to do. So I'm glad that I'm not really a Oculus user. I'm really glad that Valve has their own headset, so I can just stay on that and stay on the Steam platform. And then when I do want to play a game on Oculus, there's Revive. But yeah, I'm not up in arms like people as much, but I'm happy to be on the side of Steam and Index and all that. I just want my gaming to be gaming and have nothing to do with social media or farming my kind of personal data and what I'm doing or what games I'm
Yeah.
playing or
If you
all
use
that good stuff.
Revive, I wonder if the same thing applies to you. If you have to use a Facebook account or how that works.
Jesus, good question. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I think I have my Facebook because I have a Go and I had a Quest for a
Mhm.
week, so I'm linked. I just sort of like what am I gonna do, right? But
Mhm.
not never great news. Okay,
Mhm.
let's talk about Eye of the Temple and
Okay.
Stride, and we'll start with Eye of the Temple because you
Mhm.
were kind enough to turn me on to this. So why don't you
Mhm.
kind of tee it up and just talk about it a little bit?
Okay, so Eye of the Temple First Steps is a demo to a game that will be released, I think, later this year, hopefully. So it's a 100% room scale game. You need a 2 by 2 meter play space at least to be able to play this. So you don't, you have a, you just cut it out for a second.
Yep,
All
good.
right. You have a whip and a torch. You have a torch in your left hand and a whip in your right hand. And so you walk around these booby traps, and you have to like there'll be like rolling blocks that you have to like walk along, and you have to actually like as it's rolling forward, you have to walk backwards so that you won't fall off into the water. And you have a whip, and you have to whip things to activate levers to raise doors as you go, and the whole time you're walking physically around your room. There's no artificial locomotion. There's no teleporting. There's nothing at all other than just your physical movement. And we've talked before in a previous episode how much we think room scale is awesome and that there aren't enough games that do that. Um, so yeah, you played it, right?
Yeah, I thought it was really clever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the things that has you doing is like you'll step forward and it's like this thing that it's rotating and spinning, so you
Mm-hmm.
have to like hit to like tippy toe backwards, right, so you don't fall off of it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just it's a really clever game. The graphics
mm-hmm.
are really good in it too. I
Yeah,
thought it's something different,
mm-hmm.
and it's just such a it's a unique experience. And it's funny. It warns you kind of like to be careful in the game. Like you could fall over.
Yeah,
You kind of get really immersed into it, and it warns you to take breaks. And I found that was true. Like there were points where I could almost see myself falling over if I
yeah,
wasn't careful. Like I wouldn't put somebody new to VR into this at all. That just
yeah.
seems super dangerous.
Yeah, because they're gonna make jumps and stuff, and
Oh
you know,
God, yeah. There's gonna be
yeah,
some good videos of people playing it, like jumping into their wall.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you got to be careful with this game.
Yeah, and there's
Um,
places where walls will come down and, like, or beds of spikes and shit will come at you, and people would freak out, I think.
yeah, I didn't even get that far.
Oh, okay. It gets pretty crazy once you get further in. And this is just a demo. It's free, but there's a good amount of content in it.
Agreed. Yeah, this is well done. I had to bow out probably after 20 minutes because I don't love heights.
Hmm.
Like I can do it, but I physically my hands will start sweating a little bit, and I can feel. And I like that. I like the fact
Hmm.
that VR is giving me this feeling.
Hmm.
And I was just like, after I got to one point where you're standing on a platform and it raises you up,
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, dude. Like this is. I was like, all right, like I can do this. I just need to
Hmm.
like. They're right. Like after 20 minutes, I need to just chill out and come back to it another time. But I walked away being like, that's legit. I love experiences like that. I love what VR can do. Is just give me this whole body kind of sensation, and I think I'm there. I think I'm
Yeah.
there. You got to be careful, man, because you could get tripped up in your cord or tangle in your
Hmm.
cord. This game
Hmm.
would be much better, right? Playing it cordless.
Hmm.
I actually I use that rotation thing like a
Turn
marker on my
signal?
yeah. I use turn signal. So
Hmm.
in some ways, I think it. I don't know if it's cheating. It took away some of the illusion of being in this
Hmm.
environment, but it was
Yeah.
also a nice safety feature, I think, from me falling over.
Yeah, I use turn signal sometimes. I didn't use it for this one. So I was okay. I play like with either barefoot or with socks on, so that I can always feel the cord if it's under my foot, just so it doesn't get yanked.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
because if you have shoes on, the rubber is gonna really catch the cord.
Yeah.
and I'm always aware of it. I don't know if that kind of keeps me less immersed all the time, but I'm always thinking about, all right, I need to spin more in this direction to unwind the cord. Yeah,
I think it's smart. It is. It's just kind of how you deal with the cord, and
yeah,
you get used to the cord. So that's Eye of the Temple, and it's free. There's no reason not to try it if you have the space. 2x2 is not that much. I think most people can pull that off. So highly recommend checking it out.
definitely.
All right, the other game. So I have not played this one. You've highlighted it for me. It's called Stride.
Yeah. Yeah, Stride just came out like a couple days ago. So it's $20. Here's the only issue with it. So it's basically Mirror's Edge in VR. I played it today, and it's pretty cool. The controls are you use the left thumbstick to move, but you move slowly. But then if you swing your arms while you're holding the left thumbstick forward, you'll run faster. And there's a way to jump. It's kind of tricky. You have to hold the right A button and then raise your arms up in the air while you're holding it, then let go of it, and that's how you jump. I kind of feel like they need to come up with something different because it's kind of hard. Because you're swinging your arms and then you have to time that at the same time. Because there are lots of gaps between buildings that you're jumping over. Then you can run along the walls. You can there's some places where you can grappling hook across some big gaps, and then you have a gun on your shoulder, and so there are enemies that you shoot, and you can slide underneath. So if there's an obstacle in your way, you can if you're running and you duck, you'll automatically slide underneath it.
Okay.
And those are the main mechanics I can remember. Right now, all it is like an endless mode where you have 3 lives and you make it as far as you can, and then you die, and then it gives you a score, and then there's an online leaderboard. There's no story. There's there's not even like a time trial. They have on the main menu. There's like a story, and then there's endless, and then there's time run, and then there's arcade. And the only thing that's accessible is the endless mode. So right now, all you can do is that, and it's $20. So from what I played, I would say it's definitely not worth $20.
Yeah, I was gonna say that strikes me as pretty steep for a VR game where
Yeah.
it's just a shell right now, right? If you will, it's like a
Yeah.
promise of things to come, but
Yeah, definitely.
maybe $10 at most would seem fair for some
Yeah.
game that's bare bones.
Yeah, they're gonna have to go on sale, I think. Because there are people complaining in the reviews on Steam that this is overpriced for what it is.
Yeah, it's important to price things right, no doubt, because you don't want those negative reviews that can stick with you, and then you pop into the page and you see like mixed reviews or something, you just move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's cool. You're playing on the Index, right, for this game?
Yeah, Index.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Is it a kind of an intense game because of running and jumping and sliding? Not like I know you're not physically doing that, but just sort of the motion of it.
Yeah, you could get sweaty. It could be a workout. Yeah, if you got good at it. The controls are kind of hard, like the whole jumping and like landing on the on the pillars and stuff as you go. I mean, I died a lot. I mean, I didn't play it that much.
Yeah.
But if you got pretty good at it, you could get a good workout.
Cool. All right. I think it's one to keep an eye on, right? It's like maybe don't run out and buy it now, but if you like a game Mirror's Edge and you're familiar with that, it's parkour style game. It has potential. It sounds like.
Definitely has potential. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's move on to the review portion. Unless you got is there anything we missed news wise that you caught in the last month or two, Justin?
Nah, I think that's it.
It's been quiet, right?
Yeah.
All right. And are there any games that you're looking forward to coming out for the rest of 2020, other than maybe the couple that we talked about?
I can't think of any other than the ones we talked about. No.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that there's only two that I can think of, especially because I feel like this is the time when games come out, right? Like with the weather. People aren't spending time outside, so usually the bigger name games are coming out in October, November.
Lone Echo 2, is that next year now?
God, I've not heard anything about it.
Yeah, it's probably next year.
while. Okay, cool.
Probably next year, yeah.
All right, yeah, we need to hear announcements of more games to get excited. Okay. All right, don't despair. Anybody who's newer to VR, you've got so many games to play and so much VR ahead of you. This is sort of like I feel like coming up on 3 years and spending a lot of time in VR. This is the point I'm at, and I've heard other people get to this as well, where you start kind of just craving for a little bit more. But anybody who's just jumping into VR new, there's just so many experiences and games to be had that you're fine for many hundreds of hours. All right. Let's move on to the review portion. You have not played this game. I've played it, so I'm going to help you save your money on it. We're going to kind of go through this pretty quickly. The game is called Survive, and it's on Steam. And the way they spell it is instead of an I, there's a 1. Instead of an E, there's a 3. It's made by Candy Makers. It came out on January 29th, 2018. And it's for $24.99, and it's still in early access. So I actually remember when this game came out because I had just gotten VR like a month before, and I was hungry for games. And this one caught my eye. It's a zombie game, but what interests me is that it's a multiplayer zombie game. And well, there's a lot of multiplayer zombie games, right? Zombie games is a big genre, but again, going back to Left 4 Dead and stuff, my desire to play kind of these co-op games and fight zombies with friends is high on my interest list. So I've kind of casually paid attention to the development of this game. I can say that the developers seem to constantly be adding to it, making improvements. There's regular updates to it, so good on them. You did a good job, Justin, in the show notes and putting like the reception of the Steam game. So maybe I'll look that up while you're talking later and find out. But if I remember correctly, it's like very positive, I think. So I think finally I broke down and got this game because I was looking for another game other than Pavlov to play with our gaming group, right? And as I've talked about before, when I talked about the Forest VR, that's one of my favorite, if not favorite, co-op games in VR, co-op experience of VR. That was an amazing experience. And I knew I wasn't going to get the Force VR, but I just wanted that good feeling of just playing with a group of friends, working together to hit a goal. So this is a zombie game. There's a tutorial in it. I think that it's fleshed out where there's kind of campaigns and there's a tutorial. And essentially you have I've only played the first campaign. I've got about 3 to 4 hours into it. Essentially you have this open map, and you're going to get these mission orders to go like from point A to B, like go to the gas station and get the gas tanks and bring it back to this location. And you're in like a safe house, and you can select your gun loadout. And the guns are okay. They're not, Pavlov quality or something like that. But you're reloading, you're getting rid of the clip, you're reloading the clip. Like it's what you should expect with VR these days with the weapons. I don't think they handle great because I was able to basically one-hand assault rifles, right, with like no recoil, so there's not a good feeling with them in those terms. But whatever, doesn't destroy the game. It's just that's kind of it, like you go, you shoot some zombies, and you get to point A to B, and you come back, and you kind of do it again. And there's no moments in this game. There's no like intensity. I'm sort of like, why am I doing this anymore? I mean, there's not much of a story, really, if anything. I don't know. I was playing a 4-player game, which I guess they consider the 4-player game in beta. Maybe it would have been more intense or interesting if it was just 2 players. I'm not saying it certainly wasn't easy, but I just casually went through it. And I would think that if I'm in a zombie apocalypse with my friends, it'd be a little more intense or interesting, and it just wasn't. The melee is, pretty unsatisfying. Again, I don't necessarily expect the level of Walking Dead, right? Because melee was just fantastic on that, but it just falls so far short of it that, again, you talk about comparing how some games ruin other games. Maybe when I first got into VR back in 2017, December 2017 or whatever, this game would have been more impressive and I would have loved it. But nowadays, in comparing it to other games, it just falls short and it doesn't do anything for me. The graphics are fine. The sounds, okay. There's some weird like sounds when characters pick things up. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny. It's not a lot of character models. So in the game that I was playing with my friends, all three of us looked the same because we had just chosen our character model before going in the game. There's some jank to it. I had a friend get stuck on like a zombie or something and had to leave the game and reboot. Sometimes the controls are tricky in terms of what you're trying to do. It doesn't translate to what's happening in the game, or you hit the wrong thing. I think like when you're in the game, I could be wrong. I maybe just couldn't figure this out, but like you can't go into like a menu, menu and change graphics or something in the game. You have to quit out of it, like go back to the main menu. There's just things like that where after playing for maybe 3, maybe 4 hours max in a couple play sessions with my friends, none of them have asked to play this game again. And I haven't asked them to play this game again. So I sort of have the regret of buying it. And also at $24.99, I just can't recommend it. It looks like there's a lot of hours there. Like I think there maybe is like 3 chapters or 3 campaigns right now. We've only played the first one. What I've read in the reviews is actually the second campaign, the sewers or whatever, is overly long and tedious. So if I was experiencing that in the first campaign, I definitely wasn't excited to get there. So I'm probably done playing this game. Just kind of disappointing, unfortunately. Again, it's cool that the developers are working on it. It's early access, so it can certainly get better. But I think in this moment of time, is too much what they're asking for it. And unless you're really maybe newer to VR and you haven't played some better games, quote unquote, like Walking Dead or Half-Life Alyx, and you might be impressed with this, or you're just really, really hungry for a co-op zombie game to play with friends, I would give this game a pass. And as a rating, I would put this at I'll just go over kind of our system. It's a good refresher. So 0 to 2 is don't wish this game on your worst enemy. 3 to 5 is we all make mistakes. 6 to 8 is a solid game, and 9 to 10 is a buy it. This game is like a 5 or maybe a 5.5. Like I kind of think it's a mistake on my end. I wish I didn't get it, so I guess I would have to put it as a 5. I'm surprised it got very positive, but maybe it's scratching an itch that some people just are really looking for. And again, maybe if my standards were a little bit different, this would scratch that itch. I'd be happier, but it's just kind of like, meh. I think I just wanted to be something much better, and it wasn't.
You were hoping it was a Left 4 Dead in VR.
Well, it's not fair for me to set that bar for any game, right?
Or similar. Somewhat.
If it was half the game that Left 4 Dead is, then I'd be really happy. I'd still feel better. It's maybe a quarter of the game at best. On its best, it's a quarter of what Left 4 Dead is maybe.
It has an 84 on Steam, which is still considered very positive.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I've been keeping an eye on this game for the last 2 years, and I finally broke down. And I think I always was worried I would have this experience and I would feel about the game the way I feel about it. I kind of sensed it, but I was seeing positive reviews this whole time and updates that I was like, okay, maybe this game is where it needs to be and it's good, but I don't know, man.
I watched a video of Surv1v3. He used to do VR videos back in 2016, 2017. Yeah, I watched him play it back when this game came out, and for whatever reason, I didn't like the look of it, and then I forgot it existed until you said you bought it.
Yeah. It's it could have been something, but it's just not. It's just not. And again, I don't know how big this development team is. These are indie people, so I don't want to knock on things. It just is what it is, and I think the goalposts keep on moving in terms of my rating scale of games. 1 or 2 years ago, I might have felt differently, but it's just things that just have to be better. And these indie titles, unless it's something that is just this really kind of simple concept that's really addictive and works, just it can't hold up. After you play a game like The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, it's really hard to play Survive, even though Survive has the multiplayer co-op element that we probably would love Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners to have, right? It just pales in comparison. It's more, as our friend Adam that we play games with said, it's more Arizona Sunshine, right, than it is Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. And Arizona Sunshine was fine from when it came out, but it's just, it's an older game, and we've gotten better, we moved on, and we expect more.
When you said the part about having to go back to like the main menu to change settings, that's the game I thought of, Arizona Sunshine.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't change any of that stuff while you're in the game. You have to like totally exit out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and listen, maybe I'm missing something, but I spent time looking at it, and so at its worst, it's not obvious, and that's a bad design. But I suspect that, yeah, you definitely do have to leave the game to make some game setting changes.
Okay.
All right, man, it's all you. Let's we'll wrap it up with your review of Vertigo Remastered, a game I have not played. So take it
Okay.
away.
So Vertigo originally came out in late 2016. It was I think pretty much only for Vive, and then there was a remaster that just came out in July 21st, 2020. So it came out by Zalubo Productions. The main developer is a guy named Zach Zielakis Brown. When he made Vertigo, he was just a teenager. I don't know, might have been 15, 16 when he was working on this game. So he's some sort of prodigy. His dad came up with the name for the Xbox. His dad is
No,
a yeah, his dad is a programmer that worked for Microsoft.
that's nuts.
Yeah, I learned that he was on F Reality as their guest, and he was telling the stories and stuff. So this guy Zach is so good that Valve brought him in after they played Vertigo. They brought him in to work on Half-Life Alyx, so he worked on that game.
Very cool.
Yeah. So this game is $24.99. It has a 94 on Steam. So in 2016, I played Vertigo. I liked it so much that I think I played it like every day, and it might only take like 4 hours to beat it. It might maybe some people I think took longer, like maybe 6 hours. Depends on the person. But anyway, in this remaster, he improved the graphics because the original had pretty simplistic graphics. These are better. They're still like compared to Alyx, they're still simplistic graphics, but they're pretty good. There's full physics, so you can pick up every object in the game and throw it and interact with it. There's free loco and teleport, so you have to use both. You probably could only teleport if you wanted to, but I never would. So you free loco around, and then there are going to be places where you have to like teleport to some platform that there's no other way to get to it. Then there's an upgrade tree. As you progress, you'll collect this goop that you'll find like in hidden places, and it'll allow you to upgrade your abilities. So like to upgrade like your reload speed, upgrade your locomotion speed, all sorts of different your weapon power. And there are lots of different weapons in the game. There's different blasters, sniper rifle. I mean, there's some crazy weapon you get later in the game. I'm not gonna give that away. You also have a lightsaber type of weapon that you can kill enemies with. That the music in this game is really good. It's like some of the best music I've heard in VR. And this guy Zach said he did all the music himself. He's
Dude.
like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, he's some sort of genius, I think.
I'm worried about like if I can install a new video card into my computer,
I know.
at age 40, and this guy's doing this,
Yeah, he was in high school making this thing. It's crazy. So one thing that's really cool about the game, like the sense of scale. There are a lot of rooms where you're in it and you're like, holy shit. I mean, you just look around and everything's so big. And there's some places where there's giant machinery like swinging, and it's just like swinging around you, and it's just you feel so tiny next to it. And there are boss battles where the bosses are massive, and like that stuff's all really impressive. So almost everybody's played Half-Life, right? Well, Zach said he had never even played Half-Life when he made this game.
What?
But everyone when they play this game, they're like, this is Half-Life. It's very similar to Half-Life, because you're like in this. It's like a science lab that you're escaping, and you're fighting aliens along the way. I mean, it's so similar to Half-Life. But yeah, he said had never even played it. He played it after he had already created Vertigo. So, I mean, I definitely recommend this game. I got it for free because if you bought Vertigo, you got Vertigo Remastered free.
Okay.
It's $24.99. The controls were great. I don't remember having any issues with the controls. The immersion is great. The last ability, well, it's a single player game. I mean, there are probably, there are achievements in this game, so maybe if you want to get achievements, but like, I mean, I don't know if you'd want to go back into the game and play it again. It is good enough that I would want to, because like I didn't make a recording of it. I just played straight through it. Because like some games I don't want to record and potentially screw up the performance. This is one of those.
Yeah.
I wanted to just experience it, and so I might play it again. My rating would be, I think an 8.5.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I've played the Vertigo 2 demo when it came out because people were all hyped about that and hyping it up, and I was just like disappointed. Like it did nothing for me, the game.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Interesting.
The Vertigo 2 demo, I was not impressed at all, especially, and all these people were talking like it was like so amazing.
Yeah.
And I was not impressed by it. But Vertigo Remastered, I felt totally different.
Weird. All right. Maybe shit, dude. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I got to keep an eye on when it goes to sale. Like I just people wouldn't shut up about Vertigo 2 demo, and I played it. I was like, I don't know. I don't see it. I walked away feeling negative about the game, and I know the story about this guy being young and doing this. So like on that level, that's impressive. Like I'm totally impressed. This is the kind of thing where it's like, give this guy a team, right, and a budget, and I really want to see what he comes up with. Like,
definitely.
I'm just sort of over like this just no budget single developer games. It's just it's got to move on. Like there's a novelty of VR, and when you first get into VR, everything's amazing, right? Yeah. And after that wears off, VR is still amazing, but you need to have the games to back it up and the polish and the scope. So that's cool though. It's really interesting to hear you say that. I was expecting you to say, "Oh yeah, I love the Vertigo 2 demo." What are you talking about, Nick? So
no. I was like one of the few people negative on it, and I didn't know what hell everybody else was smoking.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think he must have just not had a lot of time to work on that, because he was working on this too. He probably didn't just, not a lot of time.
All right, maybe when it goes on sale, I don't want to spend. I've got like a bunch of VR games that I bought again when they were on sale that I thought I would play, and I'm just like, nah, I can't do it. So, anyways, I'm excited. Like I said, for Squadrons, which comes out on October 2nd, if my info is right, I think it is, and that will coincide with when we do a next podcast. It'll probably be the first or second week in October. So, we should have a review of that game. And you had some other games to talk about, which we'll shelve for next time. I want to hear you talk about the Room VR, which came out in March. That came out around when Half-Life Alyx came out, so I ignored it. And I'm not huge on puzzle games, so we'll save that for next time. I'm eager to hear that. We'll give people a reason to come back to us. If you want to interact with Justin and I, you can email us. VRGamingPodcast@gmail.com. Questions, feedback, it's all good. We're on Twitter at PodcastVR, under the title VR Gaming Podcast, and also Discord, which Discord has been mainly used for my group of friends to organize when to play Pavlov. But you can come in there and talk all things VR with us. I'm always open for that. I'm way more on Discord than I am on Twitter, so don't look at my lack of Twitter usage as any indication of my social media prowess. I do dig Discord, so I think you can just find it by searching for VR Gaming Podcast. But until next time, any closing thoughts, Justin, before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. Thanks.
All right, man. All right, it's been good. It's been good talking some VR and catching up, and we will catch you guys next month. Take care.